Okay, I think we're recording. So this will be our first initial Christopher Memories podcast and see how that goes. So I'm here with the matriarch, my mom, Diane Christopher. So good evening, Mom.
Good evening. It's my
Yeah,
first
yeah,
podcast
that's
too.
right. That's
I
right.
know it's
So
been a long time coming.
we're here in March of 2019, and so let's begin at the where it began. So tell me where you were born,
Well,
when, and where.
I was born at it's the old St. Francis Hospital, which is now I think they use it as kind of a like I'm not sure what they use it for, but it's for medical stuff, more mental.
But you were
And
born in a
I
hospital.
was born in a hospital in Waterloo, Iowa, at St. Francis. It's over on the east side. March 6th, 1948. I'm not sure the time, but we were supposed to have a snowstorm that week. And so my dad took my mom into my grandma's so I could stay mom could stay there a few days in case the snowstorm came because we lived on a farm.
Right. So Grandma Hasbrook.
Grandma Hasbrook.
Okay.
And so he wanted to make sure that I was going to be born
Okay.
in the hospital, and he didn't have
Right.
to deliver. So
So you're born, brought back where? Where did you
back to the farm in Eagle Center, which used to be my grandpa Shones's, Peter Shones, and it used to be his. And then my uncle Bernard, who is older than my dad, took it over when grandpa retired, and he farmed it for several years until he bought a bigger place. And then my dad, who is the youngest of four children, took it over. And he farmed 90 acres is all it was, but he rented enough to have like 180 acres that he farmed when we were there, which wasn't enough to support us. So he did corn shelling on the side.
So what's your first memory of the farm?
I don't know. It's just there in my head. And my first memory, I don't know. It was
kind of give us the layout of the farm.
Well, it was cold
when you're growing up. What was on the farm?
There was a barn, and there was a chicken shed, and there was a pig shed, and I always told kids when I taught that I remember at the end of the day, my dad would go downstairs into the basement, which was just, it was a hole in the ground, and he would throw coal into the furnace before we went to bed. And it was so hot when we went to bed. And then we'd wake up and it was freezing cold because Dad didn't get up in the middle of the night to go feed the furnace. And I remember telling kids about that, and they were just in awe of that because now you go to the thermostat and do that. And so I remember that vaguely. And we would sit in front of the registers in the morning until it was our turn in one bathroom. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs and a bedroom downstairs for my folks.
When did you get running water, or did you have running water?
We didn't even have a bathroom. When I was little, we had to go out to an outhouse. I think we got a bathroom, when I was still fairly young, maybe first grade, something like that, we got a bathroom put on. But I remember going, and there was just a little pecan out on the front porch when I was really little, that we would just do that rather than go out to the outhouse, especially in the middle of the night. So I remember that, and I remember Wesley Shones, my first cousin, tipped over the outhouse. That was what you did in those days. But yeah, we eventually got a bathroom, and we had one bathroom for eventually 5 kids.
5 kids. So, what do you remember about your younger siblings? When you came home, when you came home as a baby, there was Gary, who was just 3, and then Dick came a few
2.5 years.
So you don't remember that. You remember being a big sister much to
No, I remember Gary and Dick used to tease me because I was afraid of feathers and that kind of thing, and they used to chase me around the house with a feather when I was little. I don't remember a whole lot when they were born, when Annette. Oh, I remember Annette, but when Jan and Dick were born, I don't remember a lot of that. I remember when my mom told me that she was pregnant with Annette. She was ironed in the dining room, and she would stand in the same spot listening to her radio always. And she said, Diane, go look in our bedroom right in there. There's something hanging there. And I said, yeah, what? It was dry cleaning. And I said, so what is this? And I looked and it was a dress. I said, I don't remember this dress. And at that time, I was 11 years old or 10 and a half. And I said, I don't remember this dress. And she said, I'm pregnant. And I remember that. It was so exciting. Vivid.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
So growing up, what other memories of the farm or anything like that with everyone, with you and Jan and Dick and Gary?
We had, we played outside all the time. Our cousins would come over, usually on Sunday night, Mullins or Shoneses. And us kids would just be up in the haymow, dangerous as heck. Now you stop and think about it. We would play up in the haymow, and we would play Annie over with the chicken house, tag, hide and seek, and all of that. And we would come in the house when the adults were in the living room visiting, and we'd come in and get Kool-Aid, popcorn maybe, and then we'd go back outside. In the winter, we'd play canasta. Card game with them. We would go to their house. It was Sunday night, was kind of visiting night. And so we'd go to their houses sometimes. Snow, I love winter, because if we didn't have school, or we would, loved being out in the snow. We'd have drifts on the farm like you couldn't believe. We would go sometimes 4 or 5 days before we could plow out. Somebody would come and plow us out. The maintainer would come.
So let's talk about school. Where'd you go to school? What did you have to wear? When did you start school? What was that all like at the beginning?
Started no kindergarten. Right. Started in first grade at Eagle Center, St. Mary's. It was a smaller building. We had one of the biggest classes. My class is one of the biggest. We had 15 kids in our class, and we went first grade through 8th grade there. I remember.
What'd you wear to school?
We wore anything.
No uniform. No
uniform,
like that.
But we didn't go not dressed. We dressed appropriately. We didn't go in shorts or anything like that. And we took our own lunches. We always had bologna sandwiches and maybe a few chips and an orange or something, and no refrigeration or anything, or ice things to put in our back, in our lunch boxes. We'd buy milk for a penny, and we would go out in the hall and buy either chocolate milk on Fridays, or we would get for 2 cents, and then the milk was a penny. And we would just eat at our desk, and then we'd go out and play. We had no supervision for first through 8th grade. The nuns, we had 3 nuns maybe at the most in the building, and they taught, a couple 3 grades, and they would go into the convent and eat lunch, and we just played. I remember in the winter, we've got to bring our sleds, and we would sled down the big old hill. And how many times did kids get their head cut open or something? Because there's, a few of us out there anyway. And nobody to supervise. We would play, we'd bring wax paper is what we wrapped our sandwiches in, not a baggie or anything. We'd wrap them in wax paper and would put it on the slide, and that made it go real fast. We had a merry-go-round, and you'd swing out on the merry-go-round, and there was cement underneath it. There was no safety measures. But we had fun.
Who were some of your friends, classmates that you pal around with? And
still friends with Linda Sebo Rhodes. She was, and Barbara Bovey, who was like about a third of the mile up the road from us. Haven't seen her in probably I don't know how many years, 50 years probably. And those are kind of my girlfriends. Jane Snyder.
Any boys grab your attention?
Not Tom Frost, who was a year older than I was, but I had Larry Mullen, a first cousin.
Yeah.
I had Alan Jones, first cousin, the tallest. We were the tallest. And then there was Bill and Jane Snyder, and they were tall too. So when we went to Mass, which we went once a week, we would line up according to height. And so it was always Bill and Jane and Alan and Larry and myself that were at the end because we're the tallest.
So let's talk a little bit about church. So why, I mean, both your folks were baptized fully Catholic, and
right.
Was there another option for you to go to school besides St. Mary's? I mean, and then, you remember First Communion, you remember First Reconciliation, those things like that.
I do. We didn't really. St. Mary's was the closest, and the folks were both Catholic, and so naturally we did that. Holy Week was a very big thing. Even though my dad was in the field, he would come in like on Good Friday before 3:00, and we'd always go to Good Friday at 3:00, and we always did the Saturday night and Easter. We would go at school because it was a Catholic school. We would go at least, I don't know if it's once a week or more than that, but we had to wear the veil things on our head. We'd use a bobby pin and and if we forgot it, we'd take a Kleenex with a bobby pin and put it in. Very respectful. We all had missalettes. I still have my missalette. So that was important. We were taught, you just go, and we always did. And I remember after church on Sundays, it was a big thing. Everybody would stand around and visit, and us kids would play for a while, and then would end up down at the car. We usually parked right in front of the rectory, and it's not the new church that is there now. It's the old church, and would wait for the folks to talk. They always talked, and we always had a big celebration in August. It was the Eagle Center picnic, and if you were in 6th grade or older, you worked and helped, and we set up tents and had games. And we had to bring, I have a list, and Chad can show you the list of what we had to bring, like 5 chickens and 20 pounds of cooked potatoes and 6 pies. And I mean, the parents brought a lot, but if you were at a certain age, you had to work at that because that was a big fundraiser for our church.
Grandparents, both sides, Hasbrooks and Shones, maybe memories of them as grandparents and aunts and uncles and holidays or things like that you spent with them as a kid?
Yeah, Easter on my mom's side was always at our house. Christmas was at my Aunt Thelma's, and I don't remember so much about Thanksgiving, but my Aunt Jerry lived in Dubuque, so we didn't do a lot of holidays there, but we would have, and my grandma would always make, on Easter, would always make a lamb cake with coconut from her. Nobody liked coconut, but that was all right. Grandma always made it, and everybody came. All my mom's, my mom had a brother and 2 sisters, and their families would always come, except for Uncle Dale. Her brother is in Colorado, so they didn't always come. And it was a big thing, and we did the Easter egg hunt like we always did. Christmas was always, Grandma made us something. We would have a pillow with our name on it or something. Grandma always made that for the grandkids. My Aunt Thelma's uncle, or my Uncle Jim, her husband, oh gosh, he teased me. He would have me go down in the basement, and my cousin Kathy, and look up. I want to show you something. Get down there and look up the clothes chute, and would look up, and he'd throw water down on us. And he always teased us. And so those are good holiday memories. My grandpa Hasbrook died when he was only 59. He was at a farm. He was helping Mom in the garden, and he had a heart attack. And Dad threw him in the back seat and got him into the hospital, but it was too late. So I don't have very vivid memories. Okay. Andrew Hasbrook. Okay. And my grandma Hasbrook, especially after my mom died, she was there for us, and I spent nights with her. And I was very close to her. She loved Jim. Who? Grandma Hasbrook. And she loved Jim, and so she got to meet him.
Who doesn't love Jim?
Yeah.
Jim, okay. And my grandma and Grandpa Shones, after they retired from the farm, moved to Gilbertville, and Grandpa Shones was a sheriff there. And at that big picnic I was telling you about it, he always was on duty with all the money at night in the rectory with a father and another guy. They would stay up all night because they couldn't take it and deposit it or anything in those days. And so they would stay on guard all night. And I think they probably had a few beers or something. But Grandma and Grandpa Shones lived in Gilbertville, and we would go on Sundays noon and go down and visit, and sometimes DeBells were there, sometimes Shones' Mullins. They had a creek down the road from them, or the street from them, and would walk down the street, and us kids just played outside. And we'd sit on the steps going upstairs, which were very narrow and very dark, and would play button, who's got the button. And Grandma always had cookies. But they sat in their chairs, and Grandpa smoked a pipe.
So they retired.
In their chairs.
In their chairs.
They did. And they died. Grandma Shones died. And Grandpa Shones died about 6 months later. And then my mom died. So my dad lost mom, dad, wife within a year. Yeah.
And so after Grandma died when you were 10 in September, you would have been turned 10 maybe in March, and then she passed away in September.
Right.
Shortly after. So she would have had Annette in January, so Annette was
9
months old.
Yeah.
So after she passed away, how did your dad survive? Who helped out? Who were some of the different people that became part of your lives?
He had a tough time, and we did too, but we couldn't talk to him about it because he'd cry. We would go over to Mullins in the middle of the night or the middle of the week. His sister, Dad's sister, Cecilia Mullen, would go over there and visit because he had to get out of the house, I think. And so we would go over, and it would be a school night, and would sit over there for a while and stuff. He struggled, and he told us when he got older, before he died, he said he was afraid we were going to break it. He was going to break up the family, which was really, we didn't know it, thank God. So we had, my Aunt Thelma, my mom's sister, took Annette for almost over a year. I'm not sure how long that was, but she kept her because we would be in school and Dad didn't have enough money to pay somebody to come in. So he would get a lady who would come in and fix supper for us, Mrs. Campbell from LaPorte, a bad old lady who was not very friendly. And we had a young couple, and we still see Donnie and Phyllis Ryder. They had just gotten married and didn't have their house done yet. So they came and lived with us for a while. And took care of us and took care of Annette. And then for less than a year, we had another lady. Finally, Dad hired a lady, a single lady that came and stayed with us, Bernice. And she stayed with us for several years, and they were able then to bring Annette home. And then Bernice just stayed with us. And then eventually Dad started dating Alina Olson, and they got married when I was a sophomore. So I went from 6th grade to...
So 4 years.
Yeah. And he started dating her before Bernice was gone. And so when they decided to get married, then we... but by that time, Annette was home. Annette came home when Bernice came.